Welcome back. This is Mike Vitagliano, the Startup Evangelist, and thanks for stopping by to watch episode 7. In this episode, I'm going to talk about the concept of disruption being elevated to the business model. That's really what a new entrepreneur is creating, as they've identified the solution is only a small part of it. And as I've talked about in previous episodes, it's really the overall development of the business that will determine the success or failure of the entrepreneur. A short recap: in episode 5, I talked about or introduced the concepts of disruption and leverage and really defined what they meant to me as a first time entrepreneur. In episode 6, I introduced the concept of a PPT chain and what I used to evaluate problems within individual organizational structures and how entrepreneurs can use a PPT chain or subchain to identify problems that are substantial and significant to the organization and ultimately build solutions. Those solutions evolve into a business model, and that's what I'm going to be discussing here in episode 7. So, off to the PowerPoint. I'm using a little different presentation model here, and thank you to the two individuals that made the suggestion to improve the presentation. I hope you like it. So there are two disruptive categories within the B2B startup world. The first category is a PPT chain impact and what I call the improved technology entrepreneur. And this does not require a new process or a new PPT chain. What the entrepreneur is doing here is replacing the existing technology in the PPT chain, but the people and the processes remain. The improvements have to be 4x or better, again, to just for that buyer to justify and become excited about acquiring the technology. And I will refer back to my startup, 3DV Technology, which I talked about in episode 6. But as I said then, and I want to repeat here, what we did with our technology is we were able to identify why the network is slow and, as important, where the impact in the network performance was occurring. When we would analyze an enterprise global network, the first time we did it, we found in excess of 10,000 problems, and the network vice president was ecstatic. And I asked, "Why are you so excited? We found so many problems." He said, "Now I know what I need to go and fix." Over the next 6 months, they were able to take the number of performance impacts down from 10,000 to 30 on a weekly basis. And no longer was it referred to that the network was slow. The PPT chain in this example did not change. All we did was give the individuals, give the people and the processes that they were using a better technology to understand how to better do their job. In my opinion, this type of solution is really one that is geared more towards an acquisition than an IPO. The second improvement is where there is a distinct, what I call an insight entrepreneur, and it requires a distinct new process. And let's talk about some of those examples. When this new technology is introduced, it is so radical that a new or revised PPT chain has to be developed. As the new venture, you should not shy away from this discussion with the buyers. They will recognize that the technology is so substantial, so disruptive, that things are going to change. And the more you're able to have the business conversation around what that change might look like, what some of the initial testers of your technology have had to do, what some of your other customers have done in terms of changing their processes and therefore their PPT chain, the better you're going to be viewed. You will be viewed in a more substantial light by that buyer. You will be what is often referred to as a trusted advisor and not be seen as just a salesperson. So distinguish your venture by helping the buyer understand this process impact. It is extremely important when going back to my example, again, when I would have that business discussion with the vice president or whatever level individual purchased our technology, I would be able to say confidently, you don't have to change a thing in your process. We're just going to help you understand exactly where that performance improvement is. The second example, the inside entrepreneur that's building a disruptive technology that requires a new process, is a completely different conversation. This is the reason behind the first mover advantage, why every venture capitalist gets excited by this level of disruption, when it's seen. When somebody like me has a conversation with an entrepreneur and they propose a new solution and they describe their problem, I can immediately leap to what are the process impacts and why this is a substantial venture, or the potential for a substantial venture that this entrepreneur and co-founders have identified. So let's talk about some examples. I'm going to go back to the software world. It's the world that I grew up in, and I understand very well. So there was the introduction in the very late 90s, the early 2000s of what are called SAS and DAST software testing tools. Now I made a note so I get them right. SAS stands for Static Application Security Testing. DAST stands for Dynamic Application Security Testing. In the first example, SAS, what was being evaluated was the application source code to see if the program could identify any potential security vulnerabilities that existed within the code. In the DAST solution, what was occurring were simulated testing models or simulating testing events that was looking at the application to see if they were able to find security vulnerabilities. Now, the reason for these two solutions to be built was the software world changed. If you go back to the late 90s and early 2000s, the internet was the rage. When I built our solution, when 3DV was introduced, we would only have two major updates to our software every single year at most. We might have a couple of point updates, but there was typically a long time between major software releases. When the internet came about, software was being released daily, sometimes multiple times a day. And you needed to be able to test the software using automated tools rather than the more traditional software quality assurance departments. When these tools were introduced, the staffing levels were either dramatically reduced but eventually eliminated within that quality assurance department. The process of testing software was turned over to the automated tools. The initial vendors that built these tools built organizations that ultimately achieved an IPO. And the financial rewards of an initial public offering, an IPO, are dramatically different than an acquisition. So from a purely a financial perspective and secondarily from an impact on the industry perspective, it is much better to be an insight entrepreneur than it is to be a process entrepreneur. Now let's talk a little bit about AI and the conversations that are around about AI having an impact on staffing and hiring, and I expect that it will. However, much like when Amazon came to market, it didn't eliminate all of the brick and mortar retail organizations. It really only allowed those brick and mortar organizations that were able to operate profitably to exist. And those organizations that were not able to deal with the stress of an e-commerce competitor, those are the ones that went away. AI chatbots and AI agents are going to be very, very similar. Chatbots, excuse me, are being developed to handle inquiries. You might see them if you log on to your banking website or an insurance website, and the little box comes up and says, "What can I help you with today?" There's typically not a person behind that box. It's some level of automation. And with AI agents, that concept is really how can you automate using AI technology and techniques, repetitive tasks to deliver substantial productivity improvements. And so what are the PPT chains and subchains that exist in every organization? How are they going to be impacted? So within the information technology world, you'll see impacts on application development. As I said yesterday, there are 47 million software developers globally. Mark Zuckerberg, the founder and CEO of Facebook, he has made the statement that AI will functionally be the equivalent of a mid-level software developer in 2025. I've recently come across an article from Apple where they analyzed the AI software world, and they came to the conclusion that for really extensive application tasks that required substantial knowledge and maybe mathematical or scientific reasoning, that the AI technology wasn't up to par against those tasks. But for repetitive tasks, it was able to execute better than their human counterparts. So let's talk about the PPT subchains within information technology. Application development is the largest, but there's also system management, cybersecurity management, network management, cloud service management, and help desk support services. All of these are potential targets for insight entrepreneurs to build AI chatbots and/or AI agents to address the productivity improvements that can be brought about by AI technology. Now, these are just, the tip of the iceberg. You could use AI agents for anything that requires a repetitive or an iterative process. You're going to book a hotel, if you're going to book a rental car, if you want to investigate the different fares and routes for airline travel. The list of possibilities are endless, but the disruption is going to happen, and there are going to be distinct teams that are going to be funded to bring this productivity to market. So these are the three distinct, I'll call them steps along the way of the disruptive process. You need to understand what is disruption. You need to understand how to identify disruption. And then you want to understand the business processes and the business models that your disruptive venture falls into. It's going to impact your go-to-market strategy. It's going to impact your sales enablement. It's going to impact how you message your solution to the buyer community, what your website is going to stress and deliver for information. But these are the foundational aspects of disruption that it's critical to understand. So I hope you enjoyed these three distinct episodes. The next episode, episode 8, I'm actually going to talk about a public company disrupting a market and just how substantial that is when a company with massive resources and massive technology, when they move forward with a disruptive solution, how that impacts the industry and the people and companies who are in the direct competition with this new disruption. So thanks for your time. Please like and subscribe to the channel. And I've got several hundred more episodes that are going to be geared to the startup process and to help entrepreneurs understand how to move forward in a successful fashion. Bye for now.